we're here today to speak to Colin Gerrard, the filmmaker behind I Know You. Thank you very much for allowing us in to interview you, and congratulations with the film. Obviously nominations at our London Film Festival. And just want to kick off by saying the idea behind it, where did it come from?
Well, it started partly in film school. We'd been in a class one day, and one of the girls in the class actually had done some reality television at one point.
Yeah.
And we were talking to her about it one time, and she said to us, "Oh, well, it's not as real as you think it is. It's really got nothing to do with reality. A lot of it's actually scripted sometimes." And I was quite fascinated by that. And literally about the same time, I read an article in the Daily Mail, and they had interviewed children between 14 and 17. And then asked them, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they were trying to parallel that with about 25 years ago, where on the list it was, doctor, lawyer, fire brigade, police, whatever like that. And these were the sort of top vocations that children wanted to be. But in 25 years' time, it had changed so rapidly, so that the number one answer of what they wanted to be when they grew up was one thing: I want to be famous. So they asked me, what do you want to be famous at? I don't care, I just want to be famous. And that was 48% of the children between 14 and 17. So I started looking at all this sort of stuff, and I said, well, this is crazy. It's just amazing that what you see on television or even in film, you might go to a film and think that that film is real. But is it really real? What does it mean when they're doing a script of something? And on television these days, you're watching what you believe is real. You watch a newscaster, you're supposed to believe in what they say and what they're telling you. And then sometimes you find out that was misreported. And you say, well, that's not really fair to the person that's watching it. We don't really know what's going on, whether that is real or not. And that's what's going on more and more in society, that's becoming so blurred between what is real and what is not, that you don't know whether it's illusion or it's reality. And so we came up with this idea that we can invent a character, a guy that doesn't change his name, doesn't make up any particular name or call himself Stephen Queen or whatever. He is who he is, but he's not real. He's not really famous. He's done nothing, like the Kardashians, but look how successful they are. It doesn't matter. So we decided to create and invent a character. He's just a fiction, and we got this idea that we would actually start filming this character everywhere he went. And the believability factor would be about your attitude. Of course, you walk with a certain amount of attitude, and the way you talk, the way you act towards people. But at the same time, we decided we'd make a film around this, and we originally wanted to make a feature. We said, well, this could eventually be a feature, but let's do a short first and see how it works out. But it was amazing what we got away with. As much as the entire film was scripted, there were times during the film that we had to, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm getting stuck in my words there, sorry. What's the word when you're looking to...
Improvise?
Thank you very much. That's
Almost said that a few moments ago.
Minor retardation. But it's, to improvise certain things, because what came across our plate during the filming, particularly in Rome, was absolutely madness. People would start coming... We had some film we didn't put onto it. It was an area called Trastevere in Rome, where they started going mad. They started ripping our clothes and pulling the girls' hair and screaming and yelling because they thought we were famous.
And genuinely, because obviously we've seen it, there are a few moments in there. Actually, I noticed you touched upon that. The children wanted to be famous, but they didn't care for what, as long as they were famous. I noticed you mentioned it in. But there's genuine moments in there where you can see the crowd who can't be part of it. It's impossible. And they look as though they're viewing someone famous. So it's obviously clearly...
There was a woman that would not leave us alone at one point. As we were walking through Rome, we were trying to film. She would not leave us alone. She kept going and grabbing the camera. And she was in Italian, of course, but she was like, "Who's that guy? Who's that guy?" So the camera, we had this rule that you could not lie to people because we wanted to create this illusion that was not real, but people thought it was real. And so finally, the cameraman turns. He goes, "I think," this is in Italian, but I think he might be the new James Bond. And there's a scene that you can see a guy there. She goes, "I knew it! I knew this is the new guy." And that's the old expression: if a tree falls in a forest and there's nobody around to hear, it doesn't make a noise. Well, just because I say something doesn't mean it's real.
And it's deliberately blurred in there. I know we've talked about this before, which I thought was a clever twist, because I found myself at the end, and I can understand why some people think it's a documentary, but you have inserted it in such a way that you not. Is that deliberate? Do you want people to be confused? Is this a film or is it a documentary?
Not so much confused. I want them to use their brains and think about it. There's a lot of I mean, I'm not saying that I haven't made a feature film, so I can't tell you whether it's the right thing to do or not when it comes to a feature film. But sometimes I go to the film cinema these days, and I love cinema. I'm one of those people that I like the old line from what's his name, the character Sam Goldwyn. He used to say that pictures are for entertainment. If you want a message, go to Western Union. I'm not saying you shouldn't have a message in film at the same time, but I like to sit back, and I used to sit in the movie theatre. I like to be entertained, you know. And in our case, okay, it's only 8 minutes of entertainment, but at the same time, I would like people to walk out and say, you know, was that real? Is it not? What was that bit? What could have been real? You know, okay, maybe it's all real. No, it must be a documentary. And actually start questioning the film and ask questions of themselves about maybe even in a whole society, you know, what's real these days and what isn't. Where's the truth? You know?
Yeah, I mean, brilliant. It's not explained. I know I mentioned about that briefcase sequence,
right?
And you threw that in. I'm sure it's a complete curveball because I'm watching. I've seen it a couple of times, and I'm like, what the heck's that about?
Yeah.
But you don't know. It's never explained.
No.
It could be drugs, man. It could be anything. I don't know. And that
hopefully money, but
yeah. But that spins the film in a different direction because then I'm personally starting to think, well, you know, is this all about a film that's meant to be real, but actually the guy's been. Who knows? I mean, I don't know if you even know what it's meant to be. I'm sure you've done it for a particular reason.
But you're right. We threw a lot of curveballs in. We wanted to do that for people to actually spend a lot of their time scratching their heads, going like that, you know, saying why is that? Why did they put that in there? Why is that necessary? But again, for me personally, Steve, I prefer to have somebody entertained and say that that's not 8 minutes I wasted, you know. No. Where I sometimes go to a movie these days and I spend 2.5 hours sitting there and I go, well, I guess I could have been, you know, knitting or something because it didn't entertain me very much. Yeah. And I think a lot of the big films these days, which, you know, it's amazing what they do and the budgets they've got to entertain people, and it is fantastic. Sometimes it's just fluffy entertainment, but you still walk away feeling great, and that's good. I don't think it's a bad thing at all.
And how much? I know it's a very short film, and it's great because its narrative is bang, 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 bang. But was there any footage that, I mean, what was the original cut? I mean, or was it just very short to begin with?
I tell you, the original cut was about 20 minutes.
Right.
And when I saw the original cut, I liked the way it looked, but by the end of it, I was crawling under my seat. I felt very uncomfortable. And of course, anybody who makes a film, no matter how many times you cut the film, it's never going to be right. And even when you say, well, that's the final cut, a month later, you're looking at the film again, you're like, oh, that's awful. Why did I put that in there? I think that I didn't want to bore the audience. Even though it's a short, I didn't want to bore the audience and have them say, well, at the end of 20 minutes, okay, I got it, I get the idea.
Yeah.
You know? And sometimes that's what happens, you know, you see a film, whether it's a short film or a long film, and you've got the point already about halfway through the film. And sometimes it becomes a little bit too gratuitous after that.
Yeah.
And so I kept cutting the film down bit by bit by bit, and at one point I had it actually down to 5 minutes, but then I thought there was a lot of pieces missing that weren't confusing the audience.
Did you edit it yourself?
I did edit part of it, yeah. Right. I mean, I had people editing. There's a guy named Michiel Overheim, a Dutch guy, and also a guy named Dragomir who works here in London. Actually, used to work for the BBC a lot. But he had a different take in it, and so I left the film on the shelf for almost a year. And I was frustrated with it, you know. I said, I'm not happy with this, and I came back to it. I have to thank my wife for that. She said, well, you should just look at it. And I came back to the film, and I found a guy in Holland. And I kept throwing stuff at him. I said, can we do that? He said, well, let's try it. And a lot of times there's these sort of boundaries that people put on themselves when they are editing, well, you can't really do that, and that's not going to really work. And I just kept throwing ideas at him all the time, saying, well, let's just try that, and let's just do that. And it doesn't make any sense, okay, it doesn't matter, but let's see if it works, you know? And that's the part I liked about working with him also. He just wasn't afraid to try anything new at all. And I'm not saying the editing process was that perfect and that we did everything we wanted to do, but at least we threw a lot of ideas in the pot and tried to figure out something that worked for us, that made us feel good about it.
You know, interestingly, every filmmaker I've spoken to, every one of them has said to me the most difficult part for them is always the editing. Because
it's cutting.
Yeah, exactly. They've always seen as their baby. And when they've got, they said it's a really hard decision for them, but getting in a separate editor to cut the film is really difficult. But all of them, yeah, I'd say all of them, always say in hindsight it's the right thing to do because, you know, they will make you cut the fat out, and, you know, although you don't want to trim it, it does work, but they all say it's an extremely difficult process.
Well, I mean, watching myself on film makes me physically sick anyways, but, you know, at the end of the day, when you're cutting, the worst thing is you might look at the scene and you say, man, that looks fantastic, look at the way that's filmed, but it doesn't work with the film at the end of the day, and that's what happened originally. I put all these scenes in there that I said, oh, that looks great, that looks fantastic, oh, I love the way that looks. But at the end of the day, at that first or second or third cut, it just didn't work with the film at all. So it's good that you've got an editor that you can trust and you can work with that says to you, look, I'm telling you, even though that looks great, it doesn't work. And to be strong enough to say, and that's the hardest part, to really cut something. I was a musician for a long time, and I did the music for the film also, and there were some bits I wanted to put in there. I thought, well, that sounds really great, but it didn't work. It doesn't sound very good. And it's great that I'm pleasing myself, but it's also nice to have somebody or an audience watch a film and say, I liked it. One or two people out of an audience is great. We actually, when we showed the film at a film festival in California, one of the best compliments I ever got was actually a chap came up to us, and we'd actually had this massive theatre, and they put us in the Forum Films in the Burbank Film Festival, and of course it was 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning. There was a 450 seat theatre, and there was 8 people there. And one of the guys complained because his mate's film didn't show up and he ran out. But after the film, a chap came up to us and he said, I just want to tell you, I really loved the film, and I like the cinematography, I like what you did, and I got it too, I know it's a narrative fiction, the rest of it. And I said, oh, well, what is it that you do? And he works as a teacher of film at UCLA. And that was the biggest compliment I ever could have got, because it's from one of your, in a sense, one of your peers. Okay, he's obviously got far more experience than I ever had as a filmmaker, but still, to get something like that from your peers is a really nice feeling.
No, I mean, I really loved the film, and I was surprised when you said you only shot it in one, it was 1K, which didn't come across.
Well, it was 1K, I mean, we used to 5D also, which was obviously 4K too, but, and at the end of the day, it got cut in 1K, so, yeah.
And why did you choose Rome? There's obviously a reason for this, so there's anything behind this.
Well, I did go to film school in Rome, just outside Rome, the old studio there called Cinecittà, which is still crumbling and not been fixed up since Mussolini's days, but it's got a certain kind of life to it. It's lovely. It's got some old beautiful film sets. Actually, the only great film sets in there are the ones built by the Americans for the show Rome, and also for Gangs of New York. All the sets are still sitting there. But I'll tell you, what made me really want to film in Rome more than anything else, and I've seen it's become lately, not since my film of course, but still it's become lately a very popular place to film. It's got amazing natural lighting at night time. We had film lights and the cameras and stuff, but it's the natural lighting there is so spectacular, it's so cinematic. And I can understand why so many people. I saw the new James Bond film recently, and I saw they did a lot of filming in Rome also. But I'm looking at it, I kept saying, that's my yellow light. I started with that orange and yellow lighting, but it's not. It's just the natural beauty of Rome. It's just a beautiful, beautiful place to film in. So, and we also wanted to do something where I do speak a bit of Italian, but I wanted to make sure that I wasn't in a position that I would be communicating with people that easily. We were just sort of walking through the streets as supposedly famous people, looking at the sights and seeing it for the first time. Yeah. And that was, that's a little bit of acting had to come in there, because I know Rome very, very well, but I had to act like I didn't know it. And but that was the main reason, probably cinematically. It's just a really, really beautiful city.
And what was the shoot from the shoot time to the finished product? How long did that take?
Well, the shooting was basically, because part of it took place in the Bahamas, obviously, so there's a different aspect. But really, it was only 3 days of shooting altogether.
Right.
But from inception to finishing, altogether, it's not fair to say, because I stopped almost for a year and I put it on the shelf because I decided I hate this, I don't want to do this anymore, and I think a lot of filmmakers can probably relate to that. When they make something, they think it's going to be the greatest thing in the world, then when they finally finish it, they go, this is awful, I don't want to show it to anybody. And at that point I sort of did feel that way, and I kind of left it alone for almost a year. So I guess really the editing process didn't get done. A lot of, as they say with filmmakers, life gets in the way sometimes. You've got to work, you've got to pay a wage here and there. But altogether from inception to finishing, almost 2 years.
Right, with the year break. Break. So I suppose you could actually do a sequel to this. I know you mentioned about having a longer film, but you could actually, I don't know what you're thinking about at the moment, I know you've got other projects on the go, but at the end of it, I remember thinking, you could go a long way with this, because clearly people are gullible, aren't they? That's my...
Listen, if I find the investors, we could go a long, long way. I've got a great script for it, so definitely a feature that actually could keep people entertained. And quite ironically, if you think about it, you can actually sort of do a world tour from city to city.
Yeah, because I was thinking, rock in London or Tokyo, wouldn't be the same take-up, people buy into it in the same way, certainly in the crowd scenes. That's the right way to explain it. I'm also Italian people are more gullible than French. I don't know.
No, they go mad. But I'll tell you what I did learn. We'd done a documentary in America in 2009 about asking people after Obama's elected, how do you feel about your country? And we went through 38 states, and it was a fantastic experience. But it is amazing when you're carrying that microphone with the furry thing around it, You can, it's particularly, I wouldn't say particularly America, it's the same in the UK these days. If you walk down the street and there's a camera crew, everybody turns their head at some point. They're like, oh, what's going on there? What's happening there? What are they filming, you know? And I think that is part of this fame-based culture where, you know, I want to be famous. You know, that great line by Andy Warhol, everyone's going to be famous for 15 minutes. Well, I think it's going to happen now, for sure, because people's gullibility when it comes to seeing a camera and just wanting to get their face on that. I mean, you see it on the news all the time with some of them, there's guys jumping up behind the camera trying to get on film, you know, and it's such a culture where they see that fame aspect and they think those people's lives must be so great. But I do know a few people that are very, very famous, and they'll tell you, and I know it, and you know, they can't do anything, they can't breathe, they can't walk into a restaurant without being noticed, or people following with the cameras all the time. Yeah. And I tell you, after making this film, I'm sure a lot of people, there's 48% of these, you know, young children that want to be famous all the time, but that's the old expression, be careful what you wish for. Yeah, you know, because even though I had a small experience of it during this film, it is quite suffocating. You know, you have to be constantly aware of everything you do, how you walk, how you talk, because it's going to end up somewhere.
Yeah, well, you sit in the time, I know you mentioned about the man earlier, and every day I'm one of those sad individuals that does look at it, right. And it's relentlessly following certain celebrities. I mean, it picks up the Kardashians, and you often think that it must be an absolutely horrific life that these people, I mean, I certainly want to go through it, you know, it must be very, very tough to... I think for people like, I mean, I don't obviously know the Kardashians, but I think for them, they seek it out, and I think that this is what I've read, whether it's real or not, you know. The mother was very strong about the fact that she pushed the daughters and everybody into doing this and making sure they became famous. And I read another thing the other day, there's a whole group of young girls that are on Instagram that are making millions by promoting things. What they do is they show themselves their product placement, and they're showing bits and pieces on there, like the old Page 3 girls, same sort of thing. And now they're doing it digitally and online, and companies are saying, well, she's got 1 million followers, that's 1 million punters that I can take advantage of. And so they're paying these girls, and not just girls, all sorts of people, and they have these online things or Instagram pages, and they're making fortunes by just promoting themselves online. Yeah, there was a guy I was reading about, a group of guys in Japan, and they're being paid to eat food.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
Well, the Hilton, like that, the Paris Hilton, I mean, whether somebody likes her or not, I am quite fascinated with the fact that, okay, she came from a wealthy family, she had, you know, means, no question about it, but at the end of the day, she did create this person. And you know, this leaking of these sex, you know, I said leaking of the sex tapes, of course. So, I mean, according, again, whether it's real or not, you know, according to what I read, Kim Kardashian's mother released the sex tape. You know, she released it, made sure it got out there. And not that I've seen it, but the bits and pieces I have seen of it, it looks quite staged to me.
Yeah. Well, if I had seen it, I'd be able to comment on it, so I haven't.
Yeah, of course you have, yeah.
So I know, because I know you're here for another film as well, which is just, I think that's another festival tomorrow, isn't it?
Yeah, London Short Film Festival,
yeah. And that's your latest project. If you could just give us an idea what that's about.
The film's called Cherry Cake, and it was written by a good friend of mine named Jane Green, and also directed by her. I produced the film. It's got Matthew Kelly in it from Stars and Eyes, and he is actually utterly brilliant, just brilliant. And it's about how do I put it in the right words? It's about an older woman finding the fact that she's still got her sexuality, and she can still have that. And it's based around a very funny script. I mean, I've read the script and I just loved it. I just laughed and I said, this is a great film.
That's another short.
Another short too, but it's brilliant. It's been doing really well so far also. It's been in only a few festivals, but we were in Vancouver and St. Louis Film Festival, and now the London Short just got accepted to Manchester, a few other places too. So, but it's beautifully shot. We did that with an Ari Alexia and also an Epic, and it just looks just gorgeous. So I'm very proud of that, and I've got another project I'm working on now. I just got the rights to a story that I want to turn into. They're going to be turning into a script. I'm working on it now. But I still, when I go back to I Know You, I still would like to, you know, possibly push that into a feature film eventually.
Yeah, you could go. I mean, I'm surprised it hasn't been done before. I mean, I've seen films where they are films, but this is something radically different. But you could go in so many directions and easily make into a 90-minute film.
Yeah, so that's definitely on the table, but you know, of course I'm relying on the London Film Festival here to find the investors, and that's why you're here, of course. And but yeah, I would love to. I would like to do a lot more of that and develop that into another project. That'd be great. I really would enjoy that because I had a great time making it, and I've been really lucky. I mean, I've got a great group of filmmakers that I work with in Holland also, but here too, and just a fantastic group of people. And I'm really blessed to have fantastic friends around me that support me so well and encourage me, because we all have our doubts about ourselves or our talent or what we can do. But and I ran a business for quite a few years before I went back into doing this. I used to be a musician before that. But that also gave me the confidence to be able to not worry about failing, just fuck up as much as you can if you want to, and learn from the mistakes and move on, and do something better out of it, So.
And coming from because we should explain the families as a background in TV and film, I think.
Yeah, my dad passed away when I was about 2, but he used to be a writer of children's things, the old noddy things and stuff like that back in the day. And my mum was an actress, and she still is after 60 years. She's still acting.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, but she actually mainly worked in America and Canada. So I suppose that was part of the bug for me, I guess a little bit. I preferred music when I was younger. I loved music, but I think eventually for me to be able to combine the two and be able to write, because I did the music for the film also, but I just love doing that also too, and to be able to combine those two things is just a dream come true, of course. But I did it a little bit backwards, I have to be honest. I mean, a lot of filmmakers, and it's a very tough game sometimes, you're trying to find money for everything, even if it's a few £1,000 or whatever you want to make that film, you want to get it done. And I lacked a lot of the patience for the editing side of things. I learned how to edit, but to sit down and sit still is a real painful thing for me sometimes. So I sort of did it a bit, as I say, arse backwards. I went and got a job and made some money and got to a point where I could self-finance. And so when I got to a point where I felt comfortable with myself, that's when I stopped with my company, and I sold my company, and then decided to spend some time investing in myself after that. So.
And then looking back now, I mean, obviously things are always easier in hindsight. Now you've actually got into the filmmaking process. Could you let it go? Is it too ingrained now? It's just no way. This is it. This is what my calling. This is what I'm going to stick doing. Yeah, I love it.
It's great. I mean, it's a tough business, and I just don't. I feel for people too, because there's a lot of very talented people that will never get an opportunity. Not just because they can't create for themselves, but they can be very, very talented, but just not get the chance. And I know it's true, it's an old expression, but there is a bit of luck sometimes. The right person just happens to see something, and they just get that chance that you get that opportunity, And I know quite a few famous people because of my mum, and they've told me the same thing sometimes. Look, I was just another guy out there, another actor, another whatever, but I just happened to be seen by somebody, and that's how it happens. And so, but I also believe in creating your good luck also, and I think if you work really, really hard and you're a good grafter and you're willing to put the effort in, that I think you've got a much better chance of getting successful at what you're doing than just sitting back and hoping somebody's going to come and say, yes, you're fantastic, I love you, yes, I'm the best in you.
And looking back, what was the most difficult part of making this film? Or what would you change, perhaps a twin question? What was most difficult and what would you change, if anything?
Okay, what would I change? I would probably have one more camera.
Right.
Yeah, and it was very tough in some of the scenes, although we'd scripted what we wanted to do that day. Again, I was saying before, we had to really adapt during periods.
Oh, so you're doing on the fly sometimes?
Yeah,
not on the fly, but
no, yeah, but it was very close sometimes, because all of a sudden, we had situations where, this came out of nowhere, and we thought, it's a great idea, we should film that, whatever like that. And so to be adaptable during something like that is a real positive, but it was hard to be adaptable sometimes because of the crowds and the craziness. So what I would do probably different in that aspect would be have another camera and maybe another couple of nights of shooting too, because by the end of that night when we went to this area, as I said before, Trastevere, it got so crazy and so mad, they were putting their cameras and crazy, they thought it was some, I don't know what it was at that point, pop star or something, I'm not sure what they thought it was at that point, but...
Well, I suppose it didn't matter, that's the point,
isn't
it? You could be a sports star or a film star or whatever. The point that I was trying to make is that people buy into an illusion, don't they? I guess.
And I'd say the toughest part was... the toughest part probably for me is that I tried to sell the part to a lot of other people. And they wouldn't.
Well, your actual part, right? Okay.
Yeah, I was like, you should do this. You should do this. I had a couple of friends in Rome that were actors, and I said, you should do that. You're great at this. and they wouldn't do it.
That's surprising.
Yeah, so even though everyone wants to be on camera, it's not always about. A lot of people, I think, on camera sometimes in more controlled circumstances can put on better performances, but this was quite uncontrolled sometimes. And I think that the confidence level, I mean, it's an odd thing to throw in the mix here, but I actually sold door to door at one point years ago, and I recommend that to a lot of people. It's funny, I saw the actor Jamie Foxx on one day, and he said, I think he sold door to door for about 2 years. He said, I'd recommend it to anybody that wants to be an actor, because it develops your self-confidence and your attitude, that you have a very little fear about certain things. And when we went through this thing, we were coming across all sorts of crazy things that night, and the other night filming also, but you know, you need a certain amount of self-confidence to bring it off, whether you like it or not. And I think some of the best actors, and I don't include myself at all in any kind of category in that area, but I think some of the best actors really develop that confidence. And as you see them over the years as actors, you see how much better they get because their confidence has grown. You know, and I think that the tough part was really making sure that we could bring this off, and there was a believability factor that people would actually ask themselves a question: is this real or is it not?
So you never cast yourself, so you don't say you box yourself.
I ended up casting myself because nobody else wanted to do it. I mean, I probably could have found somebody, but you know, as we all know, short filmmakers, a lot of people work for next to nothing. So you know, I do know a few actor friends, of course, that might have done it, but yeah, these things happen, right?
Colin, thank you very much.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Brilliant.
Yeah.